761 million people open Spotify every month. That is more than the population of the United States and the European Union combined. It won the streaming war. It buried piracy. And for 18 straight years, it could not turn an annual profit. Here is why. And it fits on a single dollar bill. For every dollar Spotify earns from music, roughly 70 cents leaves the building immediately, paid out to record labels, publishers, and rights holders. Spotify built the world's biggest music platform on top of music it will never own. This is how that trap was built, and how Spotify is trying to escape it. Stockholm, 2006. Sweden was the world capital of music piracy, home of the Pirate Bay. Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzon made a bet. The only way to beat free was to be more convenient than stealing. Their obsession was speed. A song had to start in under 200 milliseconds. Fast enough to feel like the file was already on your machine. Fast enough to beat a torrent. Spotify launched in October 2008 in Sweden and a handful of European markets. But the technology was the easy part. To get the label's catalogs, Ek negotiated for 2 years. The price was steep, a share of revenue on every single stream. Plus equity, the major labels took ownership stakes in Spotify itself. That deal saved the company. It also defined it. The labels were no longer fighting piracy's replacement. They were its landlords. The engine was freemium. Listen free with ads, or pay to remove them. Free users cost money, but they serve two purposes. They starve piracy, and they convert. A listener who spends a year building playlists does not walk away from them. Today, of those 761 million monthly users, only 293 million pay. Roughly 60% of Spotify's audience rides for free. And here is the imbalance. Those free listeners generate barely 12% of revenue. Premium subscriptions bring in almost all the rest, nearly 9 of every 10 revenue dollars. The free tier is not a business. It is the world's largest funnel. And Spotify pays royalties on every stream inside it, paid or not. From Europe, Spotify pushed to the United States in 2011. Then, one push in 2021 added more than 80 new markets at once. Today, it operates in more than 180 countries, more than any music service on Earth. That scale made Spotify the music industry's paymaster. Its checks fund the whole ecosystem, every label, every publisher, every collecting society, in every market it enters. In 2024 alone, it paid the industry $10 billion, the largest annual payout from any single retailer in music history. Nearly $60 billion since launch. Remember those numbers, because they are exactly the problem. Compare Spotify to Netflix. Netflix spends billions on content, but it owns much of what it makes. A hit show becomes an asset on its balance sheet. In 2025, Netflix kept about 48 cents of every revenue dollar as gross profit. Spotify, at its record best, keeps 33. Because Spotify rents. Every stream of every song, forever, triggers a royalty. Fractions of a cent, multiplied by every play, every day. In classic software, serving one more user costs almost nothing. Gross margins run at 70 or 80%. In music streaming, every additional listen is an additional invoice. Costs scale with usage. Growth never buys freedom. And 3 companies, Universal, Sony, and Warner, control the majority of what people stream. Walk away from any one of them, and the shelves go empty overnight. That is not a supplier relationship. That is dependency. And the licenses expire. Every few years, the catalog deals come back to the table. And Spotify sits across from suppliers who own the product, hold equity, and know it cannot walk away. The result? From launch through 2023, Spotify accumulated nearly 3 billion euros in losses. It killed piracy. It won streaming. And it lost money for 18 years. So Spotify went hunting for content it would not have to rent. Podcasts first. Starting in 2019, it spent more than $1 billion. Studios like Gimlet and The Ringer, tools like Anchor and Megaphone, and exclusive shows, above all, Joe Rogan, first for a reported $200 million, then renewed in 2024 for up to $250 million. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, Spotify paid podcasters more than $100 million. Why? Because no label stands between Spotify and a podcast. A podcast dollar is simply a better dollar. The playbook even matured. Exclusivity out. Distribution everywhere. Rogan is back on YouTube, and Spotify still gets paid. Then audiobooks. In late 2023, premium plans added 15 hours of listening per month. A land grab in a market where publishers set the terms, not 3 labels holding equity and leverage. And quietly, a third business, the marketplace. Labels paying for algorithmic promotion. Spotify's biggest cost center turned into a customer. The needle moved. Gross margin climbed from 25% in 2022 to 30% in 2024 to a record 33% in early 2026. And the losses finally flipped. 2024 brought the first annual profit in company history, 1.1 billion euros. 2025 doubled it to 2.2 billion on revenue of 17.2 billion. Operating income hit a record 715 million euros in the first quarter of 2026 alone. The machine pays at last. But look closely at the dollar. 70 cents of every music dollar still walks out the door. The trap is not broken. It is being diluted. One podcast, one audiobook, one ad at a time. In January 2026, Daniel Ek stepped up to executive chairman, handing daily command to 2 longtime lieutenants, Alex Norström and Gustav Söderström. He leaves them the largest audio platform on earth, and the same landlords he signed with in 2008. Spotify's story is not the plucky startup that beat piracy. It is a company that spent 18 years proving people would pay for music, and only started profiting when it began selling everything around the music. Podcasts it can own, audiobooks on better terms, advertising, promotion. The house always wins, they say. In streaming, the house is not the platform, it is the catalog.